everybody, welcome to episode 24 Restoration Z. As you saw on the last episode, I found that this rear wheel is a bit stiff, and it wasn't just when the brake pads are in, I don't think. So I said to Weedmoto, hey, would you mind sending me some bearings and let's do the front as well? And they said sure, so I have those, they're in the freezer right now. I'm going to do the front wheel first because you might be able to see some rust in there, but it's only surface and it cleans off nicely, so if I take this off, I'm going to do those two jobs in one go. I know the front bearings are fine, but it's one of those jobs that if you're going to do it, do front and back, just so they're done at the same time. Okay, as I say, with thanks to Weedmoto, the bearings aren't in here because they're in the freezer. They're the rear wheel seals, which I've already done the seals, I just didn't do the bearings. But for this one, the front one, there's just two bearings and one seal, because on the opposite side you have the speedo drive, and that protects that side of the bearing. Oh, and also thanks to Weedmoto, I have a rebuild kit for the rear caliper, so we can get that done. Knock out any of the problems. As I say, the front wheel, nothing wrong with it, but we might as well do it. It's the rear wheel that's going to be the problem. Well, is the problem. Oh, also, let's address something that's been said so many times. Okay, so this goes on my bike like that, yes? Disc is on this side. Everyone seems to think my tyre is on backwards. See this here? Front with an arrow pointing that way. That way. This tyre is not on backwards, okay? Now, I should add here, the proper way to do this is with a press. I don't have access to a press. I'm not actually happy doing it the way I'm doing it, to be honest with you, but I'll get it done. I found I didn't have a long enough punch, so I've chopped out a piece of mild steel rod, and this should be okay. There's basically a tube inside here that you can just push out the way so you get an edge on the bearing, and you want to tap on quarters and sixths and eighths, you know, and just go round and round and round and get it to walk out. Don't try and knock it out in 2 hits, because then you can cant it over and do damage. You just want to slowly bring it out incrementally. So it turns out a tiny wincy bit of heat really made all the difference there. So what I'm going to do to seat these bearings is I'm going to heat the seat up a little bit, because it's alley, so I think it's alley, so it expands. And then the cold bearings can be dropped in without too much resistance, and you won't have to beat them in theory. But you do need to clean the seat of the bearing out right down into that corner. Is anything in there, a little grain of grit or even a piece of metal fragment, and it stops the bearing from seating properly, it means it's always going to be slightly out of line. There we go, that's good enough. No damage to the inner surface taking that out, so I'm quite relieved about that. As you can see, this one, well, it's not quite as good as it was, but I mean, it works perfectly fine now. Right, that's the tube, as I say, that lives in the middle. And that's why I was having to like shift side to side so you can get an edge. Now that's out, this one will be very easy because I can see all of it, pretty much. Yeah, that one feels absolutely perfect. That one actually has a little bit of resistance to it, but it'd still be fine. But well, now as I say, you should really use a press to do this, but you can do it this way, and many people do. The reason I'm a bit sort of freaky about bearings is I did that boat work for a couple of years, if you remember, sort of part-time, over the winters and stuff, and a lot of that was replacing bearings in cast aluminium housings, which cost a couple of grand, and if you did any damage, well, obviously that's a big problem. So I have probably seated, God, actually I don't actually know how many, quite a lot of bearings, when you take that into account and the bike work and everything else. Well, it's in, it's properly seated, and it feels perfect. That was really tight. Grease. Okay, so then we have to do, pop the tube in. Obviously, you don't want to forget to do that because you'll have to bash your bearings back out and then you'll have to get new ones. Well, there's the front done. Should we give it a test? Yeah, I'd say that was alright. Okay, I've hit a bit of a problem. The front wheel, as you saw, I just had to tap out the bearing from the other side like this. Well, unfortunately on this side, I just can't catch an edge. There's just nothing to grab there. So I popped down to the local garage and said, hey, if I brought you in a loose wheel and 3 bearings, how much would you charge me to just pop those 3 out and pop the 3 in? And they said 30 quid. And I said, I can buy a tool for that, thanks very much. So I've bought the tool and that'll be here Saturday. That basically is just a slide hammer and a thing that will catch this edge and I can bonk them out. Bonk them out? Bonk them out. So, annoyingly, today, the day of filming, is Tuesday. Tuesday or Wednesday? I can't remember. It's one of those days. It is definitely not Saturday tomorrow, which means that I'm going to have to do a load of other jobs in between. So, well, I'm going to leave it to the morning, and then I'll make a plan overnight, and we'll get on with it. That's not a huge issue. I can do everything else, and then once the kit's here, I can just switch those over, and jobs are good. And right, well, I'll catch you in the morning. Bye-bye. I did try a couple of tricky tricks, and this is what this is all about. I heated up the bearing. I froze this socket, which isn't actually a socket. It's an Allen socket, which the Allen's knackered on, so I hammered that out. And it just so happens to be the right size to just cram inside the bearing. So I heated the bearing up, froze this, got this to go as far in as possible, then heated this up, hoping it would clamp itself inside the bearing, and then use this over the top to try and, as a puller to try and pull. Well, no, it didn't have enough grip. Then I tried using super glue because I thought, if I clean it all out and use a little bit of super glue on here, will that work? No. So yeah, I just need the puller. I found this brake pad spring clip and assumed it was out the front one, but the front one's got both, which means this is out the rear one, which means I didn't notice that when I put it together. Idiot. Just as well we're rebuilding it. Oh, quick update on the headlight. I have now got confirmation that it's been sent. It's currently in San Francisco Airport, or it was as of last night, which means it's probably going to hit the country tomorrow, which means I should have it early next week. And it's at that point we can blast ahead and get everything done. Earlier in this video I mentioned about people thinking that my front wheel is on backwards. I've had 2 more people say it in between filming that and, well, it's not gone online yet, so there could be more by the time this gets online. Right, well, the caliper's on and the brake line's loosely plumbed to it, but I think the next logical step is to put the front guards on, which will be the first bit of new plastics going on. Okay, so there's the old fork guard. We need to switch this little clip over, I believe. It's with thanks to Haslemere Motorcycles, who you know very well from my videos, and Suzuki DRZ400SM themselves, who help supply this full kit of fairings. Right, well, first thing I need to do is drill out those rivets. I don't know how small these are, so I'm going to go pretty small to start with. I've taken the cores out, so now hopefully with something a little larger, I should just take the tops off. Like so. Yep. So we need to just switch that over now, so that pulls off. Get these rivets out. There we go, just as neat as theirs were. Okay, so I just made a mistake as to where the Speedo hub itself sat in an orientation, just a very small amount. So I've seen online people saying you should put it this side of it, but stock is the other side and it works better that way, so I'm cutting it back to stock. To do that, I had to take the skateboard wheel sliders out, release the axle, just pop that round the lump, then get that all back in line, then get this on, tighten that in because that's what allowed the clip to be the right way around. Then after I sorted that, I suddenly noticed my clutch cable was kind of not running the right route that it should be, and because I remember where it was before, and then I've suddenly realised that these did have to be the other way around. These little handguard attachments, they can be like a hook over, like this, or a hook under. And hook over doesn't work for this bike, so you have to have hook under. So hook under, and that means you get a straight line for the clutch. I've made sure that's routed in the right direction with the throttle cables in mind. This lot lifts up out of the way when the light gets here. So I had to undo the clutch cable, switch round that handguard. Of course, that meant I had to switch around this handguard. Then I checked the throttle and realised that the throttle open was okay, but the return was misadjusted. On the top here, you might just be able to see a couple of adjusters. This is open, this is closed. You have a cable that when you close the throttle, pulls it closed, so it doesn't stay open. So I got that adjusted. Got this handguard adjusted. These are all silly little jobs that would be boring to film. You've seen it all before. Okay, this is just a little cheap, I think it was like £9, anodised brake cable holder. The original one is just sort of silver metal and doesn't look very nice, and I thought, well, if we're going to the effort, why not, you know, stick everything we can get on it. Oh. Okay, that doesn't actually grip, so I've taken a little piece of rubber hose which I've trimmed down. I think it's just the top section that's the problem. There we go, that's all it needs, a little piece of rubber. Before I put the tank on, I want to have a new fuel line. This one's okay, it's just old, so I thought I might as well do a new one. This is actual proper fuel line. You can't use the wrong type of hosing for fuel. I think the bend will be okay in that. Something I'm doing, I don't know if this is the done thing or the right thing, is putting a small piece of tape around the place I'm going to cut it, so when it's cut it doesn't have a fraying end, because as you can see that frays quite a lot. And from what I can tell, I can't like melt this back or something, so I'm assuming that's the way you keep it neat. So that's that one. And then there's a vacuum line, which is this one, that goes from the carb to the petcock, which is the fuel tap on the tank. And if this isn't getting a vacuum on it, the fuel tank won't run, so the engine has to be running for the fuel tap to be open unless you have it in the prime position. Now, if this gets a hole in it, it can cause you, obviously, to lose fueling at times. This actually looks fine, but I have some new silicone stuff, so let's try this. Obviously, this being air means it doesn't matter what sort of hosing it is. Well, it does, in a way, but silicone's fine for airlines. Done. We will not speak of how annoyingly difficult that was to do. And we will also not speak about the fact that I could have easily done that when the carb was out of the bike for weeks. That's why. There we go. Okay, well, after a little bit of faffing, the new fuel line is on, the new vacuum line is on, the tank is on and secure. So that's actually plumbed in now. The brake caliper is on. This brake line has always been like this. This isn't a stock one, obviously, and I'm now starting to wonder, should it go around the back? Don't know, I'll look at that before I bleed it. The little blue cable clip is on, and obviously the fork guards, and this fork guard is on, so that's finalised. I need to fill and bleed the brake system. If you remember when I put this bracket on, I said I'll need to take it back off to seal that up. Well, the coil of metal that I made before is still in there and will do its job fine, so I put more sealant on it and just done that up. And also attached our heat protector. This is just a generic heat protector. It costs about 15 quid off eBay. It matches in with everything else quite nicely. Let's have a look here. See, that all matches in pretty well. A couple of people said that they thought that the... Oh. See that? That's a problem. That can be solved. All I need to do is just chop maybe 1/2 inch of hose off the bottom, and that should pull it down and out the way enough. But while I was talking about the hoses, some people said they thought the white hoses are a bit much. As you can now see, you can't see most of them. Most of the white hoses are hidden away inside there. There's still a panel to go on, like from here. And there's also the tank shroud that covers up all, like, the side of all of this. So you don't actually really see any of it. You just see maybe a glimpse of it through a hole. And that's kind of the idea. I knew that they'd be so hidden that just a little glint of a white hose would look quite cool, opposed to, you know, just the darkness of seeing black hoses in darkness. Okay, well, I'm going to end this episode here because we've got a reasonable amount done, and there's not a lot more I can do until other parts arrive, tools arrive included. So let's quickly do an overview of the jobs left to do. Put the headlight on, bleed the brakes, or as in fill and bleed the brakes, fill with oil, fill with coolant. So that would be the front end, and obviously the headlight plastic and the fork, the guard, the mud guard at the front. We need to make the overflow tank turkey baster thing, which should live on this side, and then we'll have the shrouds on around that. The end can of the exhaust needs to go on, but I want to shorten the strap for that. Once the puller's arrived, I can pull these bearings and pop the new ones in, pop the chain and sprockets back on. So that would be wheel back on, chain sprockets. Oh, I've got the rebuild kit thanks to Wiimoto to do the rear brake, so I need to do that. Yes, I have bled it, it's annoying, but I'll just do the brake bleeding, you know, in the same day when I do the front. And then all the plastics, and then that's it. That'll be the end of the series. Bike done. I mean, we've already mostly got a bike. We're starting to see what the white frame is doing. You know, you don't see a lot of it, as I've said, but from what you do see, I think it looks pretty cool. And although this is new and that plate's new and that plate's new, I don't feel like it's over-intrusive. You know, I've kept silvers with silvers, the right sort of dulls, because everything around here that's silver is about the same colour. Some people said about, you know, why didn't I paint the subframe? Well, you can see why, because there was going to be a ton of silver there, so it's nice to have a little bit to blend in. I'm sure there's 10 other jobs I've completely forgotten, and I'm sure we'll have problems before we get done. But we will get done soon, and I'll get out to ride this bike. And then I'll get on and review some other bikes. And I won't be spending all day in here and all night up editing. Quite so much. And some of the products, like the Righteous Stunt Clutch, are going to get their own review videos in the future to let you know what I really think of them. Because, as I say, I was so impressed by this thing, I want to make a video on its own. I forgot to even mention, of all the things as well, this comes with a lifetime warranty. Sorry, I got grease on it. Yeah, as you can see, they come with a lifetime warranty. Everything that's on there, if you want to see. Righteous Stunt Clutch of Righteous Stunt Metal. I can't wait to try riding with this as well. So as I say, if you're enjoying this series, please remember to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. About 60-something% of the people watching this right now aren't subscribed. That means you, and you could click it and it's free, and you'd help me on my way to 100k. And if you want to help support this channel, then you can do that through Patreon, through the merch store. I've recently got those mugs, t-shirts and stuff, stickers, and also PayPal, if you want to help directly that way but not use Patreon. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Oh, it looks good, doesn't it? If you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to see future videos. This channel is made possible by the support of the audience. Please consider joining my Patreon to get early access to videos, questions answered in the monthly Q&A, your name on screen, and some exclusive content, all for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out the links in the description to my merch and other ways to directly support the channel. Thanks for watching.